What if Pokemon Journeys was different? How would the story go? What would Ash do? And what is the true ending of what Pokemon Journeys could have been? Though enjoyable at times, Pokemon Journey wasn't great, especially knowing that this was supposed to be the celebration of the 25 years of the Pokemon anime and Ash's last journey. So today, let's explore a new angle of what Ash's adventure would be like if things were different in the series, and more importantly, the Master's Aid. This unique story and retelling of Ash's adventure in Journeys has actually been created and drawn by the amazing Murph ISC, a very talented creator over on Twitter and here on YouTube as well. So be sure to check them out and let them know that I sent you. That being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. Now, I almost forgot a few important things. First, this is still Pokemon Journeys and will follow the events of Ash taking on the Pokemon World Coronation Series and aiming to take on Leon. But there will be no Goh, so any events involving Goh or him catching Pokemon will no longer exist. Additionally, that means Ash will not have his Journeys team, which of course is Dragonite, Gengar, Lucario, Sirfetch'd, and Dracovish. So this means Ash will be battling with something we all wanted, his previous Pokemon. Now let's go ahead and check it out. This story starts off with Ash telling all his previous Pokemon at Professor Oak's lab about the World Championship. Look at the lineup of all these Pokemon, these iconic Ash Pokemon. Honestly, I love this. Journeys, why didn't you do this? Just like in Journeys, it starts off with Ash versus Vasquez, but instead of Pikachu and Gengar, we now get Bulbasaur swapped out for Gengar. Fair switch, Bulbasaur is pretty goated. Which makes sense because previous to this, when's the last time you saw Bulbasaur battle? It's been a while. And this is actually pretty awesome to see in the anime, and of course, Ash would win this battle. Next will be a series of battle in the normal class as he did battle Oliver, Hayden, and the Klotza guy. He didn't really have a name. Battles seem to be the same but switching out for other Pokemon, like Meganium versus Totodile, Scraggy, personal favorite Ash Pokemon of mine, versus Tauros, and Snivy versus Klotzer. Which of course would set up Ash vs Karina, which I believe is next. I can appreciate they're actually using Ash's unevolved Pokemon for these battles, like from the jump using the unevolved Pokemon. Now Ash vs Karina was a banger and still holds up to be a good battle within Journeys for sure. But this one might be a better showcase, as we have Machoke versus Corphish, which would explain why in Aim to be a Pokemon Master it has an updated moveset. Then there's Staraptor versus Mienshao, and Noivern versus Mega Lucario. Which I think is great because in XY and Z, Noivern got kind of shafted, so it's time to prove itself during the World Coronation Series. And then again, Ash Ketchum would win. Now officially in the Great Class, looks like we have some banger battles like Tony and his Electabuzz versus Oshawott, and Boldore taking down Kylie the Bug Girl with her pincer. But the big showdown is Ash vs Bee Part 1, which I believe some people loved and some people also hated because Ash lost. Though in this battle we have Ash vs Bee, and it's actually being a 3v3 and not a 2v2. Ash using the trio of Muck, Noctowl, and Buizel against Bee's Hitmontop, Grapploct, and Hawlucha. And I actually like this lineup, especially because two of these Pokemon we never really get to see battle. Though, I can admit that Ash losing in the first Bee battle in the original Pokemon Journeys really set a tone that he was not unbeatable. Now next being one of the coolest things they could have done, and that is evolving Ash's Pokemon. It now looks like unevolved staples finally evolved, and that would make sense because the Masters 8 is going to be pushing all of Ash's Pokemon, now giving him Crawdaunt, Croconaw, Floatzel, Servine, and Scrafty. Now I can admit that the Darkest Day, though rushed, was pretty solid. It was really cool to see the double evolution of Lucario and Cinderace before taking on Eternatus. But this time around it seems we're more focused on Ash and Leon working together to take care of Rose in this entire situation, which I believe is actually really important to build up the story and relationship between Ash and Leon before their final battle. Also here we see that Ash is using G-Max Pikachu, Donphan, and Hawlucha. The Great Class continues with Ash vs Dozer using Gurdier with Tauros. And also we see a clash between Levani and Rinto's Glade, which I think Rinto should have been his long-term rival, but hey. Hell, we even get to see Ash taking on the Fossil duo and not capturing Dracovish, but instead killing them? Well, that got dark. The next battle is one of the best returns in Journeys, being Ash vs Iris. I actually enjoyed this battle quite a bit, plus it redeemed Iris for a lot of Pokemon fans who didn't like her much in Black and White. Unlike the original battle where we have Dragonite and Dracovish versus Dragonite and Haxorus, we get something a little bit different. We have Ash getting unique and bringing in his Unova icons like Scrafty and Crocodile with the iconic Charizard and making an epic return. And I think this should have been the battle, Crocodile showing off his powerful skills against Exodrill. Then you have Dragonite and Charizard finally getting the rematch that has been teased for so long and should have happened in the first place. And then you have Haxorus versus Scrafty, which is just pure bliss because these two Pokemon were known as the respective babies of these trainers. Having the battle fully evolved and stronger just becomes a full circle moment of their strength and friendship. Journeys, why didn't you do this? Why? That question comes up so often, is like why Journeys didn't do these specific things, like as we go, as we see it, it's like why didn't this happen? Why didn't this happen? Then of course Ash would win, pushing him on to the Ultra class. Then we get a montage of probably one of the coolest things they could have done in Journeys. It would have been a series of Ash connecting with all his old Pokemon like Pidgeot, Squirtle, Butterfree, Lapras, Tyranitar, Primeape, Haunter, Primeape, plus Goodra and Greninja, even seeing Naganadel. Hell, even Apom, the ping pong lost champion, gets some showtime, and that's a cool moment. Plus there's also Ash's Alola Pokemon, which we knew that he met up with in future episodes, but it even still includes Ash vs Mewtwo and some Team Rocket shenanigans. Then the Ultra class goes crazy, kicking off with Ash vs Volkner, and this battle is even better. Though this time we get Torterra and Palpitoad in the mix. Two Pokemon which are known for being pretty garbage. But this seems fair because these Pokemon haven't had a great time to shine in a while, plus they have great type matchups for Volkner. But of course it looks like fans may still have to deal with Electivire being beaten by Pikachu's Z-move, and I know how a lot of you felt. Round 2. This rematch kinda pops off, and I'm excited how this actually is showcased, as this time around we have a 4v4 instead of a 3v3. Having matchups like Snorlax vs Pangoro, Incineroar vs Phalanx, Grablock vs Heracross, and the second base bird Swellow vs G-Max Machamp. Then of course, Ash would win. Next tends to be the Pokemon Legends Arceus side event with Heatran, and it seems Murph keeps most of it the same, but of course removing Go, but also adds in all of Ash's Legends Arceus related starters, because he owns all three of them technically to some capacity. So as you can see, we have Rowlet, Quilava, and Oshawott. Marnie. Now this battle in Journeys was cool, but underwhelming for such a popular character. Literally in Sword and Shield, she is a fan favorite character, and I feel like this was a one episode character that was just underutilized. This time around, it's going to be a 4v4, having Servine vs Morpeko, Talonflame vs Toxicroak, Torkoal even getting time to shine against Liepard, and Ash's new G-Max Melmetal versus Grimmsnarl. Ash has one of the most unique G-Max Pokemon that will never be showcased, and that makes no sense to me. Another common Journeys L. Just, these are so consistent, it's really bad. From there, stepping into the Masters 8, we have Ash vs Drasna, simply just increasing the number of Pokemon and switching it up. We have Goodra vs Druddigon, then Unfezant vs Noivern, the Killer Kingler vs Dragalge, and Lycanroc vs Mega Altaria, which honestly sounds like a good matchup, simply due to Ash still having the Z-move Splintered Storm Shard. Then taking on Raihan is next, and this battle gets spiced up a little bit, which is good because this battle was pretty good but could have been better. This time around we have Naganadel vs Flygon, Pignite vs Turtonator, Glalie vs Goodra, and the return of Greninja, and more specifically the now retconned Ash Greninja form. Now this right here would have been awesome, especially with Greninja returning. This might have broken the internet even more. Afterwards, we get the training arc for Ash as he steps into the Masters 8. First being the stupid, dumb, wasted Ash vs Wallace battle, which was off screen, just made no sense. But we also would have Ash vs Paul, the GOAT. What I love about this is Ash is mixing up his Pokemon, and then of course Murph gave Paul an Ursaluna. Though Paul's new Pokemon Garchomp, Gyarados, Metagross is cool, Ursaluna was just left on the table. Then from there, all the training has paid off as we have some brand new evolutions, being Seismitoad, Typhlosion, Gabite, Emboar, Superior, and Feraligatr. Then it's time for the Masters 8, being the same lineup of characters that we know from the anime. Lance, Cynthia, Diantha, Alon, Steven, and etc. Iris is here too, but Ash already beat her, so goodbye. Though it seems this tournament is a little bit different. Originally, we had a bracket-style tournament, putting up trainers against each other. But it seems Murph got creative and did a round-robin tournament instead, which for those who don't know, this is a simple way of having Ash compete against every single trainer at least once. And then for the cherry on top, every single one of the matches are 6v6. Meaning we'll get the matchups that we wanted to see, and I like that. That is something we all wanted, and we actually get that now. First would be Ash vs Alon, the rematch of the century. Having many matchups like Rowlet vs Unpheasant, Leavanny vs Bisharp, Gliscor vs Malamar, Weavile vs Heracross, Torkoal vs Chestnut, and Ash Greninja vs Mega Charizard, the rematch that needs to happen. And this time, we ain't losing. Next would be Ash vs Lance, you know, that Kanto style. So we have Emboar vs Hydreigon, which is a nice callback to, you know, the Hydreigon losing the Pignite in the Unova League. Floatzel vs Komao, Glalie vs Salamence, Noctowl vs Aerodactyl, G-Max Melmetal vs Dynamax Dragonite, then Pikachu vs Gyarados. Then quickly there's Ash vs Diantha with Gabite vs Hawlucha, Typhlosion with Aurorus, Noivern vs Pumpkaboo, Snorlax vs Tyrantrum, Crocodile vs Goodra, and Sceptile the GOAT vs Mega Gardevoir. Next up is Ash vs Cynthia. But Murph, question, why is Cynthia number 3 when she's at least supposed to be number 2? I mean, Cynthia's supposed to be number 1, but at least number 2. Though Lucario and Garchomp throwing hands was nice and all, this time it looks even better. Cynthia of course will be using the same team and still will be using Dynamax Togekiss. But the matchups are Hawlucha vs Spiritomb, Crawdaunt vs Roserade, Donphan vs Gastrodon, Superior vs Milotic, I really like this one, Dynamax Togekiss vs Lycanroc, and the GOAT, my boy, the king, Infernape vs Garchomp. Something that we've been wanting since Diamond and Pearl. This is something it has been like teased forever. Like Murph, thank you so much for putting this in. This alone makes it just so much better than Journeys. Then there's Ash vs Steven, and it's by far here better than the original. Look, the original battle was an Ash pull. Now this is a full term. It was an Ash pull, but you know, I don't think Ash should have won that one. Then we have Torterra vs Cradily, Seismitoad vs Claydol, Feraligatr vs Almaldo, Swellow vs Skarmory, Incineroar vs Aggron. I would literally pay to see that. And Charizard vs Mega Metagross. Such a better lineup just across the board. Now again, it's time for the big clash of Ash versus Leon, and this would hit more simply due to what Murph did in the story to build up how they have a connection and how these two are friends and also rivals. But of course, Leon steps in with his same anime team, but this time, Ash's team goes crazy. This time around, Ash isn't using his Pokemon he just built from the beginning of this series, the Pokemon that are so said to be the strongest Pokemon he's ever used, but instead comes in with the aces of Pikachu, Sceptile, Infernape, Lycanroc, Crocodile, and Greninja. This should have been the team we had. This should have been the team. This should have been the team we saw, no doubt about it. Maybe insert Charizard as another option for Infernape, but this should have been the team. We have Lycanroc versus Mr. Rhyme. Then Battle of the Reptiles with Sceptile versus Inteleon, Crocodile versus Dragapult, Ash Greninja versus Cinderace, and don't even get me started on Infernape versus Rillaboom. Then of course we would have G-Max Pikachu versus G-Max Charizard like before. I imagine this being as strategic and exciting as the original battle, coming down to simply Pikachu versus Charizard like before. You know, Pikachu on the verge of losing, seeing and remembering all of its friends and its adventures along the way, being inspired by Ash, and then of course powering up with God Key and then taking down Charizard. Which of course leaves Ash Ketchum the winner and the brand new world champion. It looks like at the end, all the Pokemon will celebrate together having a great time. With these final moments of Ash and Pikachu relaxing, watching the skies, we get a glimpse of Ho-Oh, which symbolizes Ash's adventure has now come to an end. This was so good. I love the retelling of Ash's adventure in Pokemon Journeys if it went a different route. And it sucks that Pokemon Journeys just went down a continuous path of not being as great as it could have been. Having a lot of anime fans saying, oh, that's good for Pokemon Journeys, instead of it being a good Pokemon series. Though we can't change the past, it's fans like us, especially like here Murph, that absolutely killed it and keeps our fandom alive. So as a Pokemon fan, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What would you change about Pokemon Journeys in the Master's 8? And again, shout out to Murph ISC for creating this amazing adventure and retelling of the potential story we could have had for Ash Ketchum. All the links for Murph in the description down below that you guys can check out and support. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button if you guys want to see more content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!